hesitating to blow your head off if you're trying to kill us.
I'm like, so if I have
Sorry.
something wrong with me and I can't control who I am, and my emotions are like gone because of whatever condition is, she's like, I'm shooting you.
You're
So,
going to throw up and melt our children? Yes.
Welcome to Hey, did you ever see that movie? I'm your host, Dez, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Lynn.
There was an old lady who swallowed a fly. Perhaps she'll die.
And joining us again, the podcaster with a degree in terror, original flavor, Tony. What's up, Tony?
Hey, how's it going?
And appearing for the very first time on the show, special guest, and Tony's better half, Katie. What's up, Katie?
Hi.
All right, tonight we will be discussing the 1986 sci-fi body horror movie, The Fly, written by George Langeling, Charles Edward Togu, as David Cronenberg, directed by David Cronenberg, starring Jeff Goldblum, Gina Davis, and John Getz. As always, this podcast will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it, then come back and listen to the podcast.
You're off to a great start this morning. This evening.
It's 8:30 at night this morning, and I took an edible. I took an edible an hour ago, thinking we were going to be starting a little earlier, so you'll have to bear with me.
This is going to be awesome.
Yes. Okay, so quickly, I would like to thank everybody joining us on YouTube in particular, because this is where the show is finding its footing. So if you are listening on YouTube, please just pause the podcast for 1 second, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and comment something like, I don't know, Des, shut up. You're crazy. All right? That'll be fun. And let's just help the algorithm push the show forward a little bit. Okay, let's do a quick fast five to get us started. And Tony, I think you're going to like this one. The fast five tonight is going to be body count showdown. So I'm going to give you two killers from horror movies, and you're going to tell me which one you think has the higher body count. Okay? All right, here we go. I will start with Lynn, then I will go to Katie, and then hopefully Tony will give us the correct answer. Number one, Chucky or Leprechaun? Lynn, who's got more kills?
Chucky.
And Katie, who do you think has more kills?
Leprechaun.
Big fan of the Leprechaun franchise?
Nope.
And Tony, which
Chucky's still going, so I'm going to say Chucky.
Okay, the correct answer is Leprechaun with 50 kills, and Chucky had 38.
Really?
Yes. Really?
Oh, look at that.
Okay.
Let's talk
Beginner's luck.
in another month. We'll see what happens,
Number two, we've got Pinhead or Freddy Krueger. Lynn, who's got more kills?
I'm going to go with Freddy.
And Katie, who's got more kills?
Freddy.
And Tony?
Pinhead for Hellraiser 3, the club scene alone should pretty much dwarf anything Freddy has done.
Pinhead is credited with 35 kills, while Freddy Krueger is credited with 39 kills. So Freddy Krueger takes the cake. I've got two now. I might actually stump the host tonight. Number three, Jason Verhoeven from Friday the 13th. I know. It's fine. It's my signature. Mispronounced names. Or The Invisible Man, 1933. Dylan, who's got more kills?
I have no clue, but I know Jason Voorhees, so I'll go with Jason.
Okay, and Katie, what do you think?
I'll go with Jason.
And Tony?
Jason.
Okay, so Jason does have more kills at 146, but The Invisible Man, 1933, has 123 kills, so this is a slaughterhouse between these two.
Really?
Wow.
Yes.
I have to go back and watch this. I don't remember that.
Yes. Number four, we've got Michael Myers from Halloween or Dr. Hannibal the Cannibal Lecter. Who's got more kills? Dylan.
Michael Myers.
And Katie.
I'm going to go with Michael Myers as well.
And Tony.
Michael Myers.
The correct answer is Michael Myers, but he just edged him out. Michael Myers had 107 kills, while Dr. Hannibal had 98 kills. And the final one.
I don't realize he had that many.
Yes, he did. And you got to think about all the bodies that he hid that we don't know about. I think he probably has the edge. Serial killers almost always have a few bodies in the closet. Number 5, we've got Jigsaw or Norman Bates. Dylan, who's got more kills?
I'm going to go with Jigsaw.
And Katie.
Jigsaw.
And Tony, who had more
Jigsaw.
kills? The correct answer is Jigsaw. Norman Bates is a slacker. He had 20 kills. You know what it was like? I mean, he's running that offbeat hotel. He's not getting a lot of people coming through. I think he killed everybody that stayed there. So 20 kills.
Not a lot of repeat business.
No. Couple of quick opening thoughts here. So this movie's one that I saw probably closer to when it came out than recently. I mean, it was cool, when you're a teenager. I thought it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. Pretty familiar with the movie coming into this, though. Probably seen it about a dozen times. Dylan, had you ever seen the movie before preparing for the podcast?
I don't think I ever sat down and watched the whole thing from beginning to end, but I had seen so much of it so many times that I was very familiar with a lot of what was happening. I didn't really know what was going to happen at the end. So that was a little surprising just because I don't think I'd ever seen the end. I had seen the stuff of him crawling on the ceiling and stuff like that. And of course, everyone has seen Jeff Goldblum getting out of the pod all naked and stuff. So it's like one of those things that was soaked into pop culture for a while there. But yeah, that's about where I'm at. Okay.
And Katie, had you seen the movie before preparing for the podcast tonight?
I had not. I had not seen it at all.
First watch. Mm-hmm. Interesting. This will be fun. And Tony, had you seen the movie before preparing for the podcast? Yes.
Yeah. I saw it on opening night back in the day. It was all over Fangoria magazine. It was pretty much Cronenberg's reintroduction to America. It was this big movie. It was this big American movie. I mean, Scanners was good and big, but that was 82.
Yeah.
So he had a big break between those two. So this was his coming out in America, I guess, is what you'd say, during the heyday of the horror. So it was all over everything. So I mean, you couldn't escape it back in the day.
Yeah, yeah. Super cool. I mean, it had so many graphic scenes that you would talk about too. The arm wrestling scene, and it was one of those movies.
Just it's squishy. It's not even bloody. It's like as soon as you introduce pus into anything, it's like, oh, you got me.
It is gooey. It was funny. I was listening to another podcast and they were talking about this movie, and the guy said that he had gone to a re-viewing of it in a theater, and he said he could hear people literally making the noises and stuff. So, and I get it, and all practical effects too, right? Wow.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
They didn't have CG really much back then for that.
Yeah. All right, let's do some quick facts on this one. So the studio thought that Jeff Goldblum was a huge mistake for the role. He wasn't super well known at the time. They wanted to go with somebody else, but the director knew better and he cast him anyway. I mean, he had complete control over casting and he overrode their decision and went with Goldblum. And what a great decision, because I mean, just the way he played it with those twitching eyes and his mannerisms, he was becoming a Fly without the freaking makeup. It was great. And Mel Brooks requested his name be left out of the credits so people wouldn't think that this was a comedy or a traditional Mel Brooks production. And that's why he's not credited. And he also told the director, do not pull any punches with this. He wanted him to go for it, to swing for the fences with the body horror and just really, go as far as he could with it. And I think he did.
I think so.
Dylan, what do you got for facts on this?
So the gynecologist is David Cronenberg, the director. Yeah. And that was interesting. I also thought that it was interesting that Gina Davis refused to return for Fly 2 because the maggot baby disturbed her so much. And I can't say I really blame her because it was pretty gross.
Great. Tony, you got anything on this?
Nothing that won't come out later. I mean, as I say, this is Cronenberg coming back into his own. I guess his first really big studio movie, like you said, you had what's his name as his producer.
Yeah, Mel Brooks.
And it was
Mel Brooks.
Yeah, I mean, having him backing him up financially could do no wrong at that point. And you're right, like you said, he basically said, "This is your movie. I want no, my fingerprints are off. Everybody's hands off. Show us what you got."
Yeah.
And he did that. And the influence of Cronenberg's body horror. That was one of the discussions that Katie and I had afterwards. The fact it's like his movies aren't horror; they're psychological. They're disturbing. They're not actually slasher. They're not ghostly. They're physical deformities that everybody has this horrible fear of. So it's a lot of psychological,
Yeah.
more than actually horror. I never, whenever I think Cronenberg, you instantly think horror, but it's not. I don't put him in the same as Carpenter and Craven, and it's a different feel. I mean, even his kids' movies with Infinity Pool and Possessor. I mean, his amazing movies, all in the same vein of bothersome but not scary for me.
Yeah.
So disturbing, I guess,
Yeah,
is the word I'd use.
and I totally agree. I wouldn't call it scary. I call it emotionally jarring, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, with a box office budget of $15 million and a box office return of $60 million, this was considered a huge success at the time. Okay, let's get into it. I will attempt to give you a quick synopsis. A brilliant but eccentric scientist begins to transform into a giant man-fly hybrid after one of his experiments goes horribly wrong. I see a lot of experiments going horribly wrong in this lab, but we'll get to it. All right, Dylan, bring us into the movie.
Okay, away we go. Seth Brundle is a brilliant and eccentric inventor. At a party thrown by his financier, Bartok Industries, for the press, Brundle meets Veronica Quaife. Is that how you like? What a terrible.
You know
last
how
name.
I'm going to pronounce it, right?
Yeah, I do. It's the only time I mention it. I should have just left it out.
shut up.
She's a reporter for Particle magazine. He invites her to come back to his apartment where he shows her his latest invention, teleporter pods or telepods that disintegrate matter transmitted across space and then reintegrate it. She realizes this could be the invention of the century, and over Seth's objections, goes to her boss and ex-lover, Stathis Borans, to convince him to publish the story. Borans is uninterested, believing the whole thing to be a magic trick. Brundle comes to see her at work and is relieved that Stathis does not want to publish the story because his telepods are not ready to be public yet. Although they transmit inanimate matter, it can't handle living things. He offers to let Veronica track his progress as he tries to work out the kinks if she will wait and write the story once he is actually finished, and she agrees. So I have a super appreciation for them dropping us right into the middle of the first conversation with the two of them and not making us suffer through scenes or shots of them at a party, running into each other, maybe seeing each other from across the room. I'm all set. Like, the editing is so super tight in this. There's no wasted scenes at all. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, so quick fact, in this opening scene in the lab, when you see Jeff Goldblum playing the piano, that's really him playing. He's an accomplished piano player, which was really cool. And I thought it was so clever for Cronenberg to leave that little bit of on-screen piano playing in. So like when he's going, you've already seen the pods. I can't let you leave alive. And he plays dun 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 on the piano. I thought that was really cool, incorporating the backtrack with the actual on-screen performance. I thought it was a lot of fun. And he always says, it's funny, Goldblum says that he tries to slip piano playing in wherever he can in movies. Like I think he did it in Jurassic Park as well. Because, it's his thing. But I do wish that Seth and Ronnie were already in a relationship when this movie started, instead of having them meeting for the first time. I wish that like they had been in a relationship, and maybe it's one of these relationships where he's like working on a top secret project, like for the government. He can't really tell his spouse what's going on at first. But, I felt like having Ronnie fall that deeply in love with Seth that quickly, it felt a little forced, and it made it hard to believe her unwavering love, even as this guy is like decomposing and becoming dangerous. She's just,
You stole that from me.
come on, we watched the same movie. It felt forced. And I love the telepods. And I'll tell you, Tony, so with this movie, sometimes when you get into these like sci-fi, like heavy science sci-fi movies, they start like bogging you down with all the science of like the telepods and how they work. And it's like not real science. So it just starts getting like, as a viewer, you're just like, I don't need to know how this hot dog's made. Just serve it up. And I liked it in this one. They didn't give you all that sci-fi jargon. Like it was just enough for me to say, all right, it's possible, and I thought that was cool. What'd you think of these scenes, Tony? These opening scenes?
See, I agree. I like that they put it in layman's terms, like he was explaining it to her to try to dumb it down for her. But at the same time, I'm sitting in the back of my head going, she works for Particle Magazine. He should be able to speak science to her, and she should understand it.
Sure.
So if we're going for accuracy, it bothered me for that. But at the same time, cut for time. Like on Dylan's point, editing in this movie, it is super tight to the point where I feel, like you said, we rushed through the romance part, we rushed through the relationship, we rushed through 2 or 3 weeks at a time. We're just skipping to. And I understand Cronenberg, you keep it tight, keep the shocks, keep the deterioration of him as it goes. In the beginning, I appreciated it, but as it went on, I felt like we missed points.
Yeah.
And that bothered me because I would have liked to have seen his deterioration a little more slowed down, because it was like, all right, here are my fingernails, and now I'm a fly. It's like there's
Totally.
But I mean, I could sit and listen to Jeff Goldblum just hang and talk about anything, because his mannerisms, his quirks, his trademark isms are. This is the movie that he, like, everyone loves Jurassic Park, but this is the movie that he is Jeff Goldblum.
Yep.
Like, this is the one it came from.
Yeah. Katie, so as a first-time viewer, I am very curious to see what you thought of the beginning of this movie. And I'm sure our listeners are too, so go ahead.
Well, I mean, mine's probably not going to be the popular opinion here. So
Okay.
I am like the opposite of Tony. So when I do watch any horror or anything like this, there's always like I don't understand. I don't get it. We disconnect on a lot of things, but I always end up pointing out things, for lack of a better term.
Let's just say the movie ended, the credits started. She looks over, she's like, that was the dumbest movie I have ever seen in my life. I go, I need you to tell me why, because this is like an 80s classic. And she went on a 10 to 15 minute tirade of why this is the dumbest movie ever, which we'll get to. But for the intro scenes, feel free.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely is a romance. There's a romance there. And if anyone here has read a romance novel, like, you've got it in this movie. This movie is a romance. It's not a horror. I said to Tony, it's not a horror movie. Like, I didn't see it. It was very gooey.
Yeah.
I would, like, it was not a very, like, even, like, it just, I don't know. It wasn't like, it didn't scare me. It was kind of gross. But the first scenes with like the romance and everything, and I'm listening to it and I'm like, okay, this is a romance. Like, they're obviously like, you've got the really like good looking, kind of nerdy, but like got it together guy who's like doing this big thing. And then you've got kind of the little like doe-eyed reporter who's, kind of super into like she's all like into him and dreamy, and she's, I don't know, but it started off, I'm like, okay, so we've got a love story here. We definitely.
So Katie, I couldn't agree with you more on that. And it's funny because I think we're kind of seeing this movie the same, because this is a tragic romance is what it is, right? And the whole, not to give it away super early, but the end is really the charm of the movie. They're going to try and like really say, this is a tragedy. But the problem is, and we'll get to it, is that the love story was so thin because the build up to it was like, this isn't like they're trying to do like what they did with Vanilla Ice, where Tom Cruise falls in love with Penelope in like a couple of hours, but there's no on-screen
Vanilla Ice,
Vanilla Sky.
That's the rapper. That's the rapper.
Baby. I was
David
like,
St. Hubbins.
No,
it's
okay.
all right.
no, but you know what I'm saying.
Vanilla Sky.
Like
Vanilla
with,
Sky.
Yeah.
So like with Tom Cruise and Penelope Cruz, there was on-screen chemistry, and I was ready to buy that romance overnight. With these two, there's no on-screen chemistry at all, and I'm just not buying this love story. So yeah, I kind of see it that way as well.
See, that's the thing is, I never took this as a love story. I took it as, yes, she was very, very into him and pitied him more than I think that the love was there. I think that towards the end she did grow to. It was, again, more pity than love. I never saw this as a love story in the sense that we'll discuss later. But
yeah,
it's a science fiction horror movie that has underlying emotional parts to it.
Oh,
but the funny thing is everyone else is seeing it a different way. So maybe I'm the blind one, but
Yeah.
we'll move on.
Yeah,
from that point.
I felt the love story was the vehicle for this movie, 100%.
So Veronica ends up spending much of her time at Seth's apartment while he works, and the two of them become more and more attracted to each other. He attempts to send a baboon through the telepods, but is reintegrated inside out. Soon Veronica falls in love with Seth, and they make love. During the act, she makes an offhand remark about the flesh driving women crazy. This gives Seth the inspiration he needs. He will teach the computer to be driven crazy by the flesh. Seth continues to work in the telepods while Veronica goes shopping for a gift for him. While shopping, she runs into Stathis again, who now believes that Seth's project is genuine and should be published. Okay, so first of all, Stathis, how do you say his name?
Vanilla Ice.
He's a yes, he's a fucking creep.
Yeah.
Because he's outside the house, outside the lab, in the car, going to the place where she's shopping. Like, you're a creep. You're a fucking creep.
Yeah.
Second, I wrote this in my notes that I have an issue with the love story, and I do think there is a love story here, but I have an issue with it. I think the tight editing does a disservice to the love story because it doesn't feel like they had been, quote unquote, spending lots of time together. It felt like she went to his house on the first day, you know? Yeah. It seems like this might be next week if you're lucky. They implode or explode or whatever you want to call it, a baboon, and within minutes they're having sex. Like, I would have been like, okay, I need to go home and have a cry and a vomit and I'll come back tomorrow. Like,
Right.
Also, he knows that living objects don't do well in the pod. Why don't you start with like a mouse or a frog? And as much as I hate animal testing, why would you jump right to a monkey? Because ew, it was gross.
Yeah, and what's he like, robbing the local zoo? He has an unlimited supply of baboons. I mean, where's he keeping them? I didn't see like bags of baboon food or diapers. I don't know. Yeah, so Stathis, very interesting character to me because, like we said, so this is a love story and it's a love triangle. And I remembered, and I had written down, I love the character of Stathis, ex-boyfriend, stalker, creepy, misogynist boss guy, right? But that's kind of like the way they want you to feel about him. But honestly, as I'm watching this movie, I'm getting more of a dirty feel from Jeff Goldblum through most of it and a more dangerous feel from Jeff Goldblum. And I'm feeling more like Stathis is more like, yeah, he's a little cocky and he's one of those guys that's kind of like, but I felt like they had more of a connection than Jeff Goldblum and her had. Like when she catches them there getting out of the shower, like they were still flirting back and forth and it was fun. I'm going to keep the keys. I didn't think Stathis was as bad as they wanted me to think he was. And he does have the hero character arc at the end.
Yeah.
But I agree the choice to use the monkeys. Okay, so this is where I'm going with Verhoven on this. So I agree the choice to use the monkeys this early in the trials without a successful like teleportation of a frog was unrealistic. They wouldn't be doing this. But I get why he did it. This is a body horror movie. And turning a monkey inside out, it's sad, it's disturbing, it's horrifying. And this is a perfect way to set the tone for what we're going to get for the rest of the movie. He wants to make you uncomfortable with this scene, and it did. It worked perfectly. And yeah, so Tony, what do you think?
No, I agree. I think that when again going back to the time it was made in the 80s, I mean everything was about the monkeys. The monkeys are the closest to human. We're going to try to clone a monkey. We're going to try to do this. Sheep.
Right.
We ended up doing sheeps because everybody was all about the monkeys. Freedom for the monkeys. But then you got 28 days later, the infected monkey starts it all. But
fucking monkeys.
But I do like your point. Like, there's no monkey cages. There's nothing weird. I'm sorry, I killed your brother talking to a monkey.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we get to Stathis, whatever his name is,
yeah.
They really want you to hate him in the beginning. They make him cocky. He's an editor. He's her boss. You're right, slimy. He's got the trench coat. He literally they dressed him that way.
Right.
But each scene that we see him, he's coming off more as just an angry ex-boyfriend. And he's obviously
more
by
of a
the
more of a concerned ex-boyfriend, I felt.
Oh, right. I mean, once the we'll call it a linchpin part of his arc,
right.
He becomes amazingly concerned, and all he wants to do is make sure she's healthy and okay, and does whatever he can to help, to show who he really is. Before that, he's just he's a dick ex-boyfriend.
Yeah.
So I never got a threatening feel from him.
No.
As much as I got like you said, the perfect word is cocky asshole.
Yeah.
From him. But I mean, with Seth, he's a nerd. He's socially awkward. He obviously didn't know she was a reporter. He's like, well, if I knew that, I wouldn't have let you in. It's like he's literally socially retarded.
Yeah, but he did
So
know.
he-
Well, considering when they were in the party,
Yeah.
she said, "I have 2 more people to interview."
Yeah.
So what?
Right.
What is she like? Why would she be interviewing people if she's not a journalist? Like, are you not paying attention?
And he's showing red flags right from the start. I mean, he's getting aggressive with her that very first night when she's like, "I'm leaving with my tape." And he's like grabbing her arm, and yeah, I got this creepy feeling from Seth. This is what
There you
you
go.
know who the boss really reminded me of, another character. He reminded me of the boss in Mr. Mom almost exactly. Like it's the same.
Martin Mull.
Martin
Yeah,
Mull.
but not just the actor. I mean, the character he
Colonel Mustard.
plays in Mr. Mom is almost the same character. Like, he's no danger to
the same
yeah,
feel.
he's no danger to Terry Garr, but he's gonna put the moves on hard until she punches him in the eye.
Yeah. What other movie was he in that was really great? That was Clue. That was right. Clue. He was in Clue. That was a great movie.
I don't know. I never saw it.
Yeah. You should revisit that
No
one.
shit.
Katie, what did you think of these scenes? And are you down for microwaving a monkey?
I mean, I didn't really look at that part because there was a lot of goo in that. But I mean, with the ex-boyfriend, it's your classic love triangle. It's your classic romance novel. There's the baggage that she has that kind of ruined her for what she's going forward. And then she meets this guy who's, again, good looking and not the ex. And she's falling so quickly in love with him. And she's having sex with him after a monkey explodes because
God,
it's
so
this,
weird.
like, it's a whole romance novel. The whole movie is a romance novel.
Yep.
Like it really is this, like, it's just funny. And he was like, no, hold on a second. Like, and I'm like, you talk whatever fantasy you want. The reason I said it was dumb is like, okay, there's Twilight with vampires, then there's werewolves, then there's all these other mythical creatures, and she's falling for a fly.
Oh, so good. I love
Really?
that take.
Like,
But it's true.
Who's attracted to a fly?
like flies are the most annoying creatures in the world. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
For all you fly lovers.
I mean,
And
there is a whole genre of romance that it's called monster fucking.
Yeah.
And it's like werewolves, vampires, shifters.
she's
Yes,
reading one right now.
I'm reading one with with werewolves right now, and it's not as like, I mean, I'm sure there's some very graphic ones. There's not like graphic ones that I'm reading, but like it's the whole, like, there's always something within the person that you're not supposed to love in a romance, and that's what attracts you to them, and that's the inner person, the inner monster inside you, and it's like the person who's not supposed to love them always does. So that's what this is.
Yeah.
It just happens to be a fly in this movie.
So what's perfect too, though, about your theory is when she gets pregnant, who does she go to? She goes right to Stathis,
Right.
because she
Right.
still has feelings for Stathis, and she's leading him along, whether you want to believe it or not. She's giving him mixed signals through this movie. And Jeff Goldblum, which is really strange to me because I normally find him like a very attractive looking man. He did not look good in this movie at any time. He had this horrible hairdo. He just looked weird in this movie to me. Like, and that's another reason I was not buying this relationship. She's not going to fall for this guy this quickly. He brings nothing to the table. Socially awkward. He dresses like shit. He looks like shit. He's got a bad haircut. He's fucking aggressive. He's probably the 40-year-old.
Probably has bad breath. We hate
Yeah,
that.
yeah, he's got bad breath. He's fucking.
I
teeth are
mean,
falling
the
out.
abs were there, so you
The abs
know.
were there. He looked good with his shirt off.
He's sleeping on a pull-out couch in his
No.
lab.
Oh god, it's all weird.
Red flag, red flag.
The scene where he's like on doing pull-ups and flipping and all of
Yeah.
that. I'm pretty sure there was an identical scene to that in 50 Shades of Grey at one point. Like, it's very much like,
Awesome.
and she's sitting there watching him. She loved it. So it's definitely, it's a romance
did.
novel.
But they definitely had awkward on-screen chemistry, the two actors. Like it never felt comfortable. It almost felt like a script reading at times to me.
Well, they were dating or married at that point in real life.
Yes,
That
yes.
was the weird part about it.
Yes, and it was weird because the director actually said that they were like using the same cadence and stuff, like when they were talking, because they were so used to talking to each other at home that they had kind of developed sort of the same, mannerisms when they would speak. And he was trying to keep them apart so they could kind of sort of break that habit a little bit. And maybe they went too far in the other direction because I don't know, man. It just felt weird to me. It just didn't. It kind of didn't work. Like Officer and a Gentleman, like what we did last week, like the on-screen chemistry between Richard Gere and what's her name,
Deborah Winger.
Deborah Winger was just like fucking amazing, and they hated each other off screen. So there you go. All right, Dylan.
You never can
Yeah,
tell.
you never can.
All right. So back at Seth's apartment, Veronica watches as Seth puts a second baboon through the telepods, and this time the baboon comes through unharmed. I gotta be honest with you, if it was me, I'd be like, dude, we're not doing that.
Right.
As they prepare to celebrate, however, Veronica finds a package from Stathis. Inside is a mock-up design for a cover story on Seth. She runs back to his office to stop him from publishing prematurely, leaving Seth to celebrate alone. He gets drunk and becomes convinced that Veronica is resuming her relationship with Stathis. He decides to teleport himself as a way to spite Veronica, because that's what you do, I guess. However, a housefly inadvertently gets into the telepod with him. He teleports to the other pod and emerges seemingly normal. I appreciate the foreshadowing with the fly buzzing around the baboon. But all of the things that Veronica said when she's leaving, something stuck to the bottom of her shoes she needs to scrape off, doesn't give me getting back together with my ex vibes.
No.
I suppose Seth is really naive about relationships, having spent the majority of his life focusing on science, that I can get this kind of misunderstanding, but also it felt a little bit thin for ripping off his clothes and sending himself through an experimental teleportation sequence, you know?
So the mistake Verhoeven made in this movie was, like Katie said, turning it into a love story that didn't work, right? So here's how I would have run this thing. There is no love story. Maybe he's married, whatever, right? So he decides he's going to do the human test on himself because he's confident with the machine. So he goes through, the fly is with him, and he absorbs the fly, just like we get. But the rest of the movie, he goes out and he basically like lures dudes back to his house so he can like send them through the pod, like drug them, send them through the pod with him, and then kill them as he continues to steal more and more humanity from all these people that he's, basically luring back to his lair and running through the machine with them. It makes more sense than this. It gets a little weird. Seth feels immature. All right. He feels like, like this lovesick puppy. He's having this little puppy love. She's like, she gives him a little bit of the pushback, and he has this like little meltdown. And this is what makes it so believable to me that he would give all his secrets up so quickly to a stranger, because he's like fallen into puppy love, because he is not well versed in relationships. Unfortunately, this does not explain why Ronnie, this confident, beautiful woman, falls so quickly and unconditionally in love with Seth. And it's just weird. Like his ear falls off and she's like, ugh, and she's like rubbing her face on his like oozing ear hole. Like, no, it's weird. And this just felt like a desperate act by a teenager to win his girlfriend back. Like, I went through the thing. But with all that being said, this is where the movie takes off, and it didn't take long to get here. I thought the pacing of this movie, super fast, kept me super interested. So, yeah, I mean, it was working. Tony, what'd you think?
Yeah. There's just so much to unpack there. Well, I mean, they said it.
The ear.
they said with the at the party, he doesn't handle his liquor well. He doesn't drink.
Right.
So as soon as he had one glass, he was pretty much already half in the bag.
Yep.
So he's making bad choices to begin with. Add to that, you're right, the socially awkwardness, the inexperience with women, because the man has 10 suits, all the same suits, so he doesn't have to think about anything else but science. Yeah. The man sciences all the time. That's his life. He lives in the lab. His lab is in his apartment. He doesn't have a social life. He doesn't do anything. So someone's showing him attention. He wants that. So this is his way of getting back at her, because he knows the most important thing to her, outside of him and maybe the ex-boyfriend, is getting the story.
Right.
So it's here. I'm going to get her back. I'm going to do it on my own. But he still tapes it for her because he doesn't want to hurt her that bad. He's acting, you're right. He's acting like a teenager who's getting his heart broken like a little kid, but he doesn't want to go all the way with it.
Right.
The telepod, I mean, I love the telepod scenes. I mean, it's simple, and it's a simple design, but it works so well. Like you said, they dumbed it down, so it's like literally the screen tells you what's happening as it's going on.
Right.
But the foreshadowing is there. You see the fly in the pod with him through the window as he's sitting there, and now it's like, oh shit, here we go, it's on. And as progresses, it go from the strong, confident to the now I'm getting insane. Here comes the twitches. Now my body is physically changing. The psychological and the mental change before the physical does, and that's what I liked is he was getting the tics and the sugar needs before his body actually started to break down.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's what I really appreciated in the writing, in the performances, and Jeff Goldblum being as random and chaotic as he is, was perfect to play a twitchy Fly.
Yeah.
So I'll stop there until we get to
well, the first time they have sex, his face looks like he's got chicken pox. Or like when like the third time they had sex, or the second or third time, whatever it is, his face like
the blotchies.
Yeah, he's looking rough, man. And she's like, "Ooh, these are some prickly iron hairs coming out of your back." And it's like, no. Katie, what did you think?
Even with that, it's like that's like a classic romance novel scene.
Not in a romance.
It's true though, because like if you can like take every part of this and be like, there's always that like one scene where it's like where she's like, oh my god, it's been hours. It's like okay, it's a fly.
Yeah.
Like let's be real here. Like it's a fly. Like this is not like I don't know. It was just weird. It's just the weirder he went to like the more he transformed, the weirder it got, and it's like that.
She couldn't stay away.
She couldn't stay away from it, which is again, it's like that attraction to what you shouldn't love.
Yeah.
So it's that.
But it wasn't that attraction for like the bad boy, like, oh, I love James Dean, he's a bad boy. It's like this guy is melting like a candle. I have to be near him. No.
Yeah, once he started to melt, then you could kind of see the difference between like
Twilight. You sparkle or you're weird. Infected, you know,
or you got, your ear and your fingers are falling off and you're hugging him. Like that part. It's like, cause then you could see it in her face that she felt sorry for him.
Yeah.
But it's that inner struggle of how far do I go with this?
Well, I mean, if we jump into that point, the scene where he's literally sitting down with her after calling her after they said it was like 4 weeks later is he's scared. He's like, I don't know what's happening to me. It's like
she was trying to get you to see a fucking go down to the Minute Clinic when she saw the hairs growing out of your back. Now you look like freaking Chet from Weird Science, and you're looking for some answers. It's too late. He does mention in the beginning that he doesn't actually build these pods; that he sends a lot out to smarter people, because you're gonna say like, if he's such a nerd and he's so committed to science and this is all he does and he's like meticulous about it. You're going to, like, how are you not noticing there's a fucking fly in the thing? Or at least checking, like going in there with a Swiffer. You know?
Because he was drunk. He was drunk.
He wasn't drunk enough for that. He wasn't drunk enough for that. And I did like...
A Swiffer.
There was a little foreshadowing in the beginning that we just glossed over. When they were driving up to the lab the very first time, he's telling her about how he has motion sickness and he can't travel in any capacity in anything, which is why he's so passionate about creating this device so he can get around without his motion sickness. And they push it as far as to where he's like literally gets out of the car while it's still moving and is like dry heaving. Like this guy can't take a drive fucking from the store without throwing up. And he tells a story about how he threw up on his bicycle. And I thought that was interesting, that he's going to be throwing up on everything pretty soon. So, I don't know. Dylan, continue with this love novel, please.
All right. Veronica comes back to him that night and they reconcile, but his journey through the telepods begins to show some strange side effects. Thick, coarse hairs begin to grow out of his back. He develops an intense craving for sugar, his body is ridiculously athletic, and his sexual stamina is seemingly endless. The sex alone begins to wear out Veronica. Seth suddenly believes that Veronica should go through the teleportation herself, perhaps in a bid to make her as virile as he is. She refuses, and in a sudden burst of uncharacteristic anger, Seth leaves in search of a woman who can keep up with him. At a seedy bar, he meets a woman named Tawny and arm wrestles with another man to compete over who gets to take her home. Seth wins by breaking the other man's arm with his superhuman strength and because of the white secretion from his hands. After a night of sex and a demonstration of his invention, Tawny pours champagne on his skin, which severely irritates him. He then tries to get her to go through the telepods, but she refuses. Seth tells her to not be afraid, but at that moment, Veronica arrives, saying, "You should be afraid, be very afraid." Tawny leaves because she's smarter than Veronica, and Veronica confronts Seth about the changes she's seen in him. Not only is his back growing more hairs, but his face is breaking out in blisters. She then informs him that she had some of his hairs analyzed and that they were most likely insect hairs. Seth refuses to believe anything is wrong with him, and he kicks Veronica out of his apartment, his thought process having become more scattered and irrational. So for me, this would be enough for me to walk away. I don't. The necklace is coming off. I don't know. I'm done. Not only the disrespect of throwing her out and getting Tawny, but the violent screaming. I would have been like, we're good here.
Yeah, and punching the fucking wall into pieces. Like, that's your face in 2 weeks. Like, this guy is an abusive dude.
He's unhinged.
But he's been unhinged since the very beginning. He's a lunatic, this guy. Okay, so let's go through this. So Peter Parker, he gets buff and turns into a superhero after his bug in the lab mishap. Lucky Peter Parker, right? And at first it's looking like Seth might become the next X-Man, like the Fly, But no such luck. He gets screwed in this accident. I love these scenes, especially the body horror appetizer we get in the arm wrestling scene. So this is where the director is going to put the pedal to the floor starting right now, and the movie starts to become visually disturbing on like this relentless steep curve, and it just gets more and more and more, and he builds it until we get to the horrifying ending. But like you said, I'm having trouble seeing this relationship through Ronnie's eyes. Like, I see the relationship I almost feel like we're watching this movie through Seth's eyes more, because it makes a little more sense if you watch it as if you were watching it through his eyes. The choices that are being made make sense. It doesn't make sense if you're looking at it through Ronnie's eyes. It's just unrealistic. She's not going to fucking look past this bizarre behavior this guy is. No, it's not going to work. So, Tony, talk about it.
I can't justify it. That's the thing. It's like, this is one of those movies that I accepted everything for what it was as I watched it growing up and initially, and I watched it this time through, and again, accepting it. And then turning to Katie at the end and her just laying into me about the romance layers and onions and layers and abusive boyfriends and all the stuff that I don't initially go to when I'm watching David Cronenberg. So now I'm sitting here like, all right, this is just a graphic after school special about abusive boyfriends.
Yeah.
At this point, it's like he's hitting walls, he's punching things, he's going to cheat on you now, and you're supposed to take it because he loves you, and that's how he shows you he loves you. Oh, but not this time, baby. You come on back, you'll be fine. Right. It's like I literally am sitting here viewing it in a whole new way. I mean, I never bought that he. It took every wind out of my sail as far as the relationship goes. I mean, the relationship. I'm in it for Brundlefly. I'm not in it for their relationship.
Right.
I see what they were trying to do. They hit the beats what they were supposed to do in a realistic sense. No, she should have been out of there the minute. She shouldn't even have went back. Is really what it comes down to. As soon as he threw her out, that should have been it.
Yeah.
But she did go back, and at that point, and then going forward, we could see. All right, now she's going to have this thing inside of her. But we'll get to that. That she's got to deal with. So there is a relation, and then is it human? Is it not? Is it infected? Is it not? How's it going to affect me? And but I mean,
and also, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but Tawny had sex with him,
right?
Like, is she running around with a Brundlefly baby? Like,
ooh,
ew.
Right? I like that. Yeah.
Do you really think anything's going to grow inside of Tawny, though? We saw what she was doing before. She looks like she's a little. She could have the same things falling off her in another week and a half. Anyway.
She's actually Freddy Krueger's mother. She's the bastard of 1,000 sailors. Yeah, I mean, yikes, dude. Come on. And there is one line that stands out. When he says in the bar to the guy, "If I beat you, you get $100." I mean, if you beat me, you get $100. But if I beat you, I take her home. And she's like, "I'm not a hooker." And he takes a sip of the booze and looks at her like, basically, you are. I mean, this guy
Yeah.
is a creep.
Yeah. He doesn't have a
Yeah.
lot of game. He
Yeah.
doesn't really but that's the person, that's the guy, that's the character. He does no game, but there's always one in the love trial that doesn't.
Yeah.
There's always
Yeah.
one that, and then it's, do you go with what do you go versus the different type of, that's like, it maybe they're obviously so different between
Oh yeah.
the two guys are so different, and she doesn't obviously know. She's now attracted and feeling bad, and she's seeing what he's becoming and seeing how he's treating her. And I agree with you. It would have been enough for me too. I would have been like, all right, we're done. This is not, but
I mean, that's the trope in these kind of movies, is the fact you think about Christine. Arnie Cunningham is this little nerdy kid. He gets a little bit of taste of power. He gets a little bit of positivity in his life. He turns into a monster.
Right.
I mean, that's the trope of this character, is he finally breaks out of what he is to become, and he thinks it's his strength, but it's actually his downfall is what it does it. But it turns him into the monster, the human monster that's reflecting the physicality that he's going to eventually become.
But in Christine, he gets a hot rod and some hair gel, so she's falling in love with him. Here, Jeff Goldblum looks like he's been smoking crack for 2 weeks in fucking Charlestown. It's not good. This is not a good look. It's not good.
But I mean, as far as his attitude goes, that's his cockiness. He's got the muscles. He's got the performance.
He's not.
When we saw him, he was just kind of leaning over and he's walking through the party and doing his thing. Now he's doing gymnastics on a chair. So I mean,
Yeah.
he's got,
and she's loving it.
yeah.
Dude, she's loving all that.
There's no way you're getting past that face at this point in the movie. I don't care what his back looks like. There's no way.
He had the fly, Riz.
Okay, one more question. All right, so another question. So the arm wrestling, okay, that little bit of sweat that he's secreting is enough to weaken the flesh on this guy's arm to break it. But Ronnie can suck on the goo coming out of his ear, rub it all over her face, and it's fine. They're not following any rules.
I didn't take that's what that was. That was one of the questions I always had even growing up, and I watched it again today going, I took it that was the stuff that eventually breaks his fingernails off. It's it's not the goo that's breaking down like the vomit. It's actually his body breaking down itself.
But he did vomit on his hand and his face and everything in that scene. So when she's rubbing up against him, there's the vomit, there's the...
Oh, that part of it. All right, I'm sorry. Yeah, I thought you were talking about the arm breaking scene.
Well, I was just saying that, if that little bit of secretion from his sweat would do that to that biker, how come the throw up and everything is doing nothing to her? I was saying, how is she doing that? It made me wonder. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. At this point, though, she's still DTF. She's like, I know you don't have an ear. I know you're missing fucking teeth and fingers, but I'm still down for one more go. No, this isn't happening like this.
In the bathroom later on, Seth does notice more severe changes to himself. His fingernails are falling off and his fingers are dripping more fluid. Actually, whoever wrote this, his fingers are not dripping fluid. He's popping them like pimples, and it's disgusting. His face has more blisters, and more of the thick hairs are now growing from his back and on his face. He concludes, like Veronica, that something must have gone wrong when he went through the telepods. He checks the record of his teleportation, and his computer tells him that there was a secondary element in the pod with him, which he recognizes now as a housefly. When he asks the computer what happened to the fly, it tells him that he and the fly have been spliced together into a single organism at a genetic and molecular level. A month goes by in which Seth and Veronica do not speak, but finally he contacts her and asks her to see him. When she arrives, she sees that he is frightened and heavily deteriorating. His face is lined with pockmarks and he needs canes to walk. He's wearing gloves to keep from biting his fingernails off. He eats by vomiting corrosive enzymes onto his food and sucking up the dissolved remains. As they talk, his ear falls off. Oh my God. He refuses to take help from any professional doctors, not wanting to be a lab rat. Veronica goes to Stathis, hoping to find some way to help Seth. He warns her to not go back to him, fearing contagion, but then asks her to go ahead and visit him again to document what's happening, because he's gray. He's not black and he's not white. So Stathis can see if he can find a way to help. He just wants some documentation so he can write a book about this later, but we'll talk about that. She returns to his apartment to find him crawling on the walls and ceiling as he now realizes what is happening. He is turning into a human fly hybrid he calls the Brundle fly, and wants Veronica to document his metamorphosis. She records a video where Brundle demonstrates his new eating habits and brings it to Stathis, who watches in horror. Veronica then shocks Stathis further by telling him that she is pregnant with Seth's child. So Seth tells Ronnie that he might be contagious. His ear falls off. She hugs him. She's pressing her head against his ear hole. No, no. First of all, he doesn't know if he's contagious, but then tells her to come over. And the first thing he says is, I might be contagious. And then he's like grabbing her. It's like, so do you love her? Because if you do, you shouldn't be touching her if you don't know if you're contagious. Gross negligence. And then she doesn't know. She's touching him. What the hell are you doing? Like, do you want to go lick some handrails in the subway next? Like, what is going on here? It's disgusting.
She's still all over him. He's like, so you're telling me there's a chance? She's like, well, if we can find some really strong antibiotics, I think we can make this work. No, this is over. At this point in the movie,
gross.
This is where I can no longer suspend my belief in Ronnie's undying love for her new decomposing, aggressively, unbelievably sketchy boyfriend. This is over. This is over. She has plenty of content to do her story now. She's literally been dating this weirdo for like 3 weeks and had like 15 incidents that would make anybody run for the hills, yet she's still interested. No. So this is where I wish the director, again, had gone a different direction, right? At the very least, I wish he had given me a reason to believe she would keep going back. For instance, Seth was dangling some piece of super juicy evidence that she needed to complete this like airtight super story that was going to get her like, you know, the Pulitzer Prize, right? Like maybe a video or something. At least I could have said, well, that's why she keeps going back. But no, it doesn't. And there's the final question I have on this. Why would this woman, even if she loved him, why would she want to derail her career and have this baby with this man that she's known for like literally less than a month, who is just like this complete whack job? I just don't believe that this is what she would want to do with her life. So it didn't work. But I will say this. If you came for hard to watch practical effects that would make your mom puke, you're watching the right movie. Because from here on out, it is relentless, brutal gruesomeness. And it's visually and emotionally difficult to watch from here on out. It really is. And the end for me, I welled up and cried. And as you guys know, I also love stories. I'm the big rom-com guy. That's my thing. And I cried 5 times while watching An Officer and a Gentleman. And I cried once and almost twice during this movie. So, Tony, what do you got?
I got a bunch of disbelief for that last 3 minutes of you talking. I don't understand anything that's going on in my reality right now, but okay. No, I don't know. It's so funny because I'm usually the first person to tear apart movies like this, and I've always just taken it at face value. Like, all right, there's a love story. She loves him. She loves him. She loves him. But watching it now through different eyes and as older, and not just all right. This is David Cronenberg's The Fly. This is take my nostalgia out of it. It's like everything everybody's saying is 100% accurate. It's kind of like shitting on this movie for me, and I'm kind of bummed about it. I know.
How does that feel, honey?
But Tony, no, because most people didn't come to this for a love story. The only reason we're doing this because it's a podcast where we have to talk about the movie and break it down. So if you came for The Fly, great, you got it. And you don't give a shit about this wonky love story that makes no sense.
And again, that's what I'm saying. I came for The Fly.
Yeah.
But the last third of this, you have to buy into their relationship. Otherwise, I'm sitting here like she was going, this is just fucking stupid.
Yeah.
This is just fucking stupid. Why is she doing this? Who cares? Shoot that fucking thing. As soon as it crawled out, shoot that fucking thing in the head.
Right.
Why is this being emotional? It shouldn't be. I'm like, because she loves him. Because, they, you know, like, what if there's some humanity left in there? She's like, it's a fucking creature. Shoot it in the fucking head. And I'm like, you just have no heart. And I'm realizing I'm just fucking stupid because this is a terribly written movie. And that's what it comes down to.
Dude.
And I'm like, oh shit, everybody's right. It's like, I still like it. I'll still dig it. But yeah, all of this, she shouldn't be there. You're 100% right, Des. It should be a study. It should be, I'm coming back in a bag. Yeah. Protecting myself, a COVID outfit, because I don't want to catch what you got. You know, so I mean,
a mask.
Yeah.
Well, and she also he says I might be contagious, I might be this, I might be that, and then she gets pregnant, and she's conflicted. I mean, I've had a baby, so I can't imagine the confliction that would happen there. But then she sees him like the last time, whatever it is, and she's like, get it out of me. So
Right.
there's obviously something that's like freaking her out, that's like, I can't be part of this, I can't have this, so like we need to go now to get this out of me. And
Right.
that's obviously when he
Well, a maggot nightmare will do that too.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
but even after she has the maggot nightmare, she goes to him to tell him, and she's not even sure at that point.
All right, because he says, please don't kill me. That's the only thing human left of me.
Right.
And she's like, we don't know that. Well, we don't know it's not going to be human either.
Right.
It's like, you're killing me. That's all I have left. And that's a tragic scene.
Of course.
It's like he's pleading with her. And that's the scene I'm like, oh, that's what, see, there's the emotion.
But
She's
she
like,
never told him. He heard her.
Overheard it.
Over the rooftop.
So like at that moment in time for her, she saw him and she's like, I can't give birth to whatever's inside of me.
And I can't crush him with this information.
Right.
Yeah.
And then he went to her and
kidnapped her.
Again, tragic love story. It's a tragic love story with babies and family, and that's
Maggots.
what the meat and potatoes of this movie is. The story, the meat and potatoes, the oozing
meat and gravy,
decomposing.
really.
And it's still like she's pregnant by a creature. And
Yes,
it's like,
she is.
I don't know if you've seen Twilight, but at least in Twilight, they know it's a human, some kind of human. It's not a maggot. It's not like a thing, but they don't know what's inside of her. And it's kind of like, there's a lot of similarities like that, but there's this whole, like, she didn't want to get rid of it. At the end, she blows his head off at the end and you don't even see any difference.
Right.
Like, it's just goo at that point. So it's like,
so when the monkey turns inside out, did you guys notice the thing's still in there moving around like come on, man. At this point, that thing's dead. You're not moving anymore. The thing is, and do you guys think that Galaxy Quest, that was a tip of the hat in Galaxy Quest when he goes, the creature, it turned inside out and then it exploded. I was like, oh shit. Where's Mathesar? Oh, God. All right, Dylan.
Also, would like to say that Maggot Nightmare would be a great band name.
Oh,
just
cool.
Putting it out
Maggot
there.
Nightmare.
there you go.
Maggot Nightmare. I like it. Afterbirth. First single.
Oh God. Okay, let's not. Okay.
We already did.
Okay, so Stathis, I can't say that name to save my life. Oh my God.
Vanilla
The
Ice.
ex-boyfriend encouraged her to Vanilla Ice encourages her to talk to Seth before aborting the baby. There is a nightmare sequence where she, quote unquote, gives birth to a giant maggot. When he sees Seth again, he is deteriorated even further. He no longer wears clothes, his skin has become swollen and lumpy, and more of his body parts have fallen off, and he barely resembles his old
But
self.
there's still a chance.
He keeps the sloughed off parts in a cabinet, dubbing it the Brundle Museum of Natural History.
Nice.
Because his teeth are falling out. It's so gross. He warns Veronica not to return because his fly instincts are taking over, and he will not be able to keep himself from hurting her. She leaves without telling him she's pregnant and demands that Stathis takes her to a doctor for an immediate abortion. Seth overhears them talking, however, and follows them to the doctor's office where he kidnaps her by jumping through, what was it, like that cube glass? Nothing's jumping through that, but okay. Takes her back home and asks her to have the baby, as it may be the only thing left of his humanity. Veronica is too frightened, thinking there is some kind of monster growing inside of her. Stathis follows them to Seth's apartment, armed with a shotgun, but Seth jumps down from the skylight, catching him by surprise. Seeing that Stathis means to shoot him, Seth defends himself by vomiting his digestive enzymes on his left hand and right foot, melting both appendages and sending him into a state of semi-conscious shock. He is about to vomit onto his face and make a meal out of him when Veronica, who Seth had left on the roof, intervenes. Seth lets him live, sort of, but asks for Veronica's help to make him human again. When she asks him to explain, he shows her the plan he has created. He wants to use the telepods as a gene splicer yet again, using it to fuse himself with Veronica and their unborn child, in the hopes that her untainted humanity will be enough to stop the metamorphosis. Veronica resists, because of course she does, and Seth tries to force her. As she struggles to free herself from his grip, she accidentally rips off his jaw, which sparks the final stage of Seth's transformation. His limbs shed the remainder of their human skin, revealing the insect body underneath. The rest of his face sloughs off to reveal a fly head. The now completely transformed Brundlefly throws Veronica into a pod, activates the computer, and steps into the other. As the countdown to teleportation ticks away, the wounded Stathis comes to his senses, and with some effort, he uses the shotgun to shoot the cables to Veronica's pod. Brundlefly smashes the door to his telepod and attempts to escape, but the teleportation sequence has begun, and he is halfway out of the pod. In a flash, he is teleported to the other pod with part of the telepod, causing a shower of sparks. Stathis manages to crawl to Veronica's pod and let her out. So now you've got this morphed thing, Brundlefly, with mechanical parts. It's fucking terrible. Veronica arms herself with the shotgun and shoots him in the head, holding the barrel at his own head.
Yes.
She's unable to at first, and then does it and has a meltdown. And it's fucking gross.
Fade to black.
She sobs as the film fades out and the credits roll.
Watching Katie laugh at this nonsense is the funniest thing.
Why? It's not even like, I mean, like Lost Boys, vampires. Those were hot vampires.
Yes.
Like, come on.
Billy Worth. I mean, I'm not seeing Billy Worth here.
No, I'm not. I'm seeing a gigantic, I don't know, slimy
So,
thing.
Dylan, go ahead.
All
What do you
set.
got?
And she said, what happens to
I was
the
just-
baby?
Yeah, right? You never find out.
You never
I'm
find
assuming
out
she
what
went and had an
Well,
abortion.
you do know there's a Fly 2.
It's a sequel. Eric Stoltz is in it.
Eric Stoltz is the
Ah.
fucking maggot baby.
He's
Oh.
the Brundle baby.
Yeah. Eric
She
Stoltz.
has the baby?
Ew.
Yeah.
This is even dumber. Like, come on.
Okay.
This is why this is her first time on here.
It's okay. I struggled to understand why he thought that fusing himself with the baby and her was going to make him more human, because he's already half fly. So what do you do? Like, what's going to come out of there? Like, it didn't make any sense to me.
A
Okay.
baby fly.
Yeah. Okay.
Tiny fly.
So first of all, he's more than half fly. He is like 99.8% fly. So I get why Verhoven did this. He introduces the idea that Seth would fuse the three of them together, him, Ronnie, and the baby, because it's a horrifying concept. I mean, that's why he's introducing it. I think the move here would have been for Brundle to first fuse himself with Stathis and see where that gets him. Like, first we're going to do this.
He's going to be missing a hand.
And a foot, but that's okay. I mean, it's funny because apparently Verhoven actually has that foot and he keeps it in his freezer and he takes it out and shows it to his kids' friends when they come over to the house and stuff.
That's awesome.
You know, it's fun. You know, his kid must be like, Dad, not the foot again. Just don't.
Yeah, put the foot away.
But so speaking of Stathis, the scene where Seth is melting his hand and leg, it didn't look especially real to me, but it was the emotion. It was so brutal because the actor played it so good. What made this scene hit so hard for me was watching Seth lose his last trace of humanity. He is now animalistic. It's what he threatened Ronnie with, where he said, you know, soon I won't be able to control myself. You know, the fly will take over, and you know they have no mercy. And the helpless horror on Stathis's face, while at the same time hearing the desperate plea from Ronnie, no, please don't do it. And you see that moment where Seth looks up before he throws up on his head and he almost says, like, you know, what am I doing? It's so disturbing. It's crazy. And finally, we get the final scene. And this final scene actually made me well up. I cried the first time I saw it, and I cried this time because I'm a pet owner. I love animals. And this is a human being that's turned into a fly, right? And though I don't buy the love story because it just wasn't presented to me the right way, they really needed to be married, I think, for this to hit hard or engaged, right? But when he takes the barrel of the gun and puts it up against his head, I'm watching a human being that's lost all of his humanity, begging to be put out of his misery and his shame for the things that he's done up to this point. And when she blows his head off, it fades to black. I was just like, God damn, that shit was heavy. I felt bad. I felt like she was killing a puppy or something. It was horrifying. It's horrifying. Tony, what do you got?
No, I was actually going to touch on the part of that too, in the sense that one of the things that we really didn't say up until just now is the fact that I loved all the small losses of humanity before it really went downhill. The fact that his voice recognition on the computer wouldn't work the further he got along, so he had to manually log in. He had to use gloves because he was losing his fingertips. My favorite line in the whole movie is like, he's crawling down the wall. Hey, I got this thing growing here. What's this? I don't know. It's just like he's laughing about it because it's so absurd, but it's so sad at the same time because he's trying to cope with it, knowing he's losing himself.
Yeah.
It's like a cancer, like he said, they compared it to cancer. It's like a cancer patient watching themselves slowly deteriorating away, and the Alzheimer patient knowing they're starting to forget things.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to watch putting that kind of sadness into it. And that's where I kind of always, when I was growing up, that's kind of where I went with it, is the fact that this guy was a genius, so lonely most of his life because he was socially stupid, didn't do anything. This is his first, quote, girlfriend, they make it out to be. And this is where it went because he was drunk, stupid, and jealous, did something stupid, and this is where he ended up. Now, we're in the 80s, so we could be also talking the AIDS references that were going on as well. The body breaking down, the deteriorating, no one wanted to touch them. Yep. The whole underlying, we didn't even talk about that, but that's where it was rumored, when the movie came out, it's like, oh, this is obviously
a euphemism. Yeah.
A euphemism for that. And her fear of like, I had sex with him, there's something inside me now. It's like, that is so heavy handed in those scenes. But yeah, I mean, as I said, as soon as the movie ended and she had her reaction, I'm like, you didn't have any sadness whatsoever?
Really?
For this poor guy. And she's like, no, it was a fly. You kill it. It's like, it's a creature. All human is gone at that point.
That's not what I said.
That is a damn lie.
I said.
Go ahead.
And I said the same thing, that if this was me or you, and we had turned into something that was going to threaten our life or our children's lives, I'm not hesitating to blow your head off if you're trying to kill us.
I'm like, so if I have something wrong with me and I can't control who I am, and my emotions are like gone because of whatever condition is, she's like, I'm shooting you.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I know where I am now.
No. If you're
if you're looking to eat the children, she's blowing your head.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're going to throw up and melt our children? Yes.
No, but
just so you know, my insurance policy is in my top left-hand drawer, guys. All right, you're seeing this. I want this noted on record.
So here's the thing with this final scene: if let's say they cut the shot of him grabbing the barrel of the gun and putting it against his head, then I don't think this is sad at all. He goes into the machine.
Right.
That's the scene.
Yes. Without that, he is just a fly, and he's just tried to kill everybody, and you're scared of him. But he crawls out of that thing, and he's still got his humanity in his eyes, and she's looking at him in the eyes, and he grabs the barrel of the gun and it moved me. It did. It moved me even knowing it was coming. It moved me. Very powerful ending.
Yeah, I mean, it falls into the Frankenstein King Kong territory, and that's why I don't rewatch this a lot, because I hate tragic figures.
Yes.
It's not King Kong's fault that he's a monkey in New York.
Yeah.
It's not Frankenstein's fault that he was brought back to life. He didn't choose to do that, but he's labeled a monster for it. Seth was his own creation and his own destroyer, but at the same time, he didn't want that to happen.
Yeah. No.
Right.
So,
no.
I mean, it's a tragic, sad figure outside of the love story. Just as a human being, it's like he did this to himself, and now he's got to die, and it's sad.
So I think we did it. Anybody else have anything to say about the end of the movie? No?
No.
Katie, do you think they're going to make a Harlequin novel out of this, or no? Okay. Put Fabio on the color, like with some fly wings. Okay.
Like my romance novels, not as fly.
Not as gooey?
Not as gooey.
This is like
Des,
Twilight.
if you start doing romance movies on here, she's your person, man. I'm telling you.
We do tons of romance movies, and you're more than welcome to pick one and drag Tony on, and we'll pull him out of his.
No, we don't do that with Tony, because he'll ruin every single movie that you want to watch. There's been so many movies that I've shown him, and he's either loved them, hated them, or like made me cry with how much he trash talks them after.
There was only one that I did it with, but we don't have to get into it.
That was like the way it was when we did The Strangers, and I couldn't help myself. Okay. Okay. Let's do some final thoughts and oh no, I'm sorry. Let's go to the
Recast.
recasting couch. Yes. Okay, I will get us started. I would replace Jeff Goldblum with one Crispin Glover, another actor that I think is
Ooh.
just weird enough to pull that off.
I like it.
Yes.
That's a
Dylan,
good one. Yeah.
what do you got?
I would replace Stathis with a young Howard Hessman.
Okay, that's dramatic change in the movie.
No, he's not a comedy. Well, he is comedic, but he
Yeah.
could pull off.
He could. No,
He can pull off other
He could.
roles. Yeah.
Tony.
After Invasion of the Body Snatchers, see, I recast Stathis with Leonard Nimoy. I want him to be the older scientific editor.
Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting. I don't know. This love triangle is getting uglier by the second.
Yeah.
Katie, who would you change in this movie? What would you do? Yeah.
All right,
Ronnie.
Ronnie. I would change her with Elizabeth Banks from. She was in.
She has a thing with Slither.
Oh,
We watched
okay.
Slither. It's
Oh,
very
I like
similar to
Slither.
that. It's
Okay.
very similar to this. There's this
I
like,
like Slither.
but that I'm like, she has that same kind of like. I could see them doing a remake of this and having her do a very similar character, like she was in that.
Naivety.
Cool.
Naive and kind of just.
I like it. I like
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
That's
I
good.
like it.
All right, we got some good stuff. All right, let's do some final thoughts and we'll rewatch score this. I think, unfortunately, this discussion maybe has shrank my score a little bit like Gary Coleman. We're going to find out. Okay, I'll get it started. So this movie, it's dark, disturbing, makes you feel like shit when you're watching it. It's hard to look directly in the face. But if you came for that, you weren't disappointed. The only real hole in this movie was the relationship between Seth and Ronnie, and it's a big part of the movie, and it's a problem. It's a body horror movie, but it's a love story first, and it's not a good love story. Jeff Goldblum, perfect human fly. My rewatch score originally was 3.39, but I think I'm going to put this at a 3.01. It's above average body horror movie. I enjoyed it. Dylan, what do you got?
So I'm gonna score it a little lower. Goldblum's awesome. Gina Davis was fantastic, but I really had some problems with the story. It just didn't work for me on several levels. Great special effects. I mean, if you're looking for a kind of gross out film that has a little bit more than just gross out to it, this is your film, but it wasn't for me. So I'm going to give it a 2.245.
Yeah, that's the thing too. For a movie with only 3 actors in it, really, I didn't think Gina Davis or the guy that played Stathis were strong enough to carry a movie with 3 characters in it. It was kind of a problem. Jeff Goldblum was crushing them. Tony, rescore it.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum is the movie for me.
Yes.
I'm not a Gina Davis fan. Outside of A League of Their Own, I really just am not a fan. I haven't seen anything in with her that I've not, even Thelma and Louise I'm not a fan of.
No.
Beetlejuice?
She was good.
We can't have that discussion on here because that'll turn into a whole other thing.
She was good in that.
I respect Beetlejuice for what it is, but I'm not a fan of Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking forward to the new. Anyway, I try.
I am too.
Me too.
I really remembered this with higher respect than I watched it with today. Not just because of the after discussion, but because it's like, wow, this really is a weak, thin story, and it's held together by gross out, amazing effects and quirky Jeff Goldblum, who I'm just a huge fan of. So, I mean, the makeup effects they still hold up for what they are for practical effects. I mean, you can definitely tell they're creature effects. It's not a real thing, but it's very, very effective for what it is. And definitely some gag-inducing pus vomit stuff. So that's going to keep the score where it would have been. I'm going to go straight 3. This was definitely in the 4s for me.
Yeah.
And watching it today really dropped it. It bummed me out. But I'm going to go straight 3.
Tony, I saw it exactly the same way. If you would ask me today before I pushed play what this was, I would have said it's going to be in the low 4s anyway. And
Yeah, I mean, when you said, "Hey, let's do The Fly," I'm like, "Yeah, let's do that. That's gonna be great. I can't wait to rewatch it." Now I'm like, "Oh shit, I wish I didn't watch it."
All right, Katie, load your shotgun and put this dirty fly out of its misery. What's your score?
It's a movie, so I'm gonna go like 2.56. I mean, it just
2.56.
like I don't think it's a movie. For me it was way too confusing with the relationship and what are we focusing on, and again it's almost like a young adult novel romance because everything's so fast and everything's so quick. And I actually said to you during it, I'm like, I feel like this is a long movie, but there's a lot of the timeline was off.
Yeah.
So I think there was
Yes.
just too many things that were off for me. There were too many things that were not cohesive.
Yeah.
And it's a fly.
Yeah. It's
Fly.
awesome breakdown. All right. So there you go, Delyn. Put those scores together and tell us what this movie is.
So this movie, the score comes out to 2.70375.
Wow.
That puts it at number 64. It's near the bottom, kids. It's just Dez is about to watch Dez's head explode like he was a fly. It is this much above Neighbors.
Oh, come on. It's above Neighbors. Yeah.
What's it right below?
It's right above Neighbors, and it's right below Love Actually, which we all really
We should have
disliked.
had. We should have had Carrie.
My heart.
No, we should have had Katie on that episode.
I know.
God.
I actually like Love Actually.
That was one of the first movies I showed him was Love Actually.
What did we give
That was one of the first movies that I made him sit down and watch.
And I liked it. The second one she showed me was It's a Wonderful Life, and I made her cry for half an hour how much I hated it.
All I remember was somebody got screwed for a gift in that one. Like someone got a pearl necklace and somebody got like a piece of coal. I don't remember. Okay. So we will be back next week with Pat. He will have his fully packed bong, and we will be reviewing The Breakfast Club, the Rat Pack original. So this was one of my favorite movies growing up. I've seen it. I don't even have to watch it to review it. It's all set. And then we will be back with Breaking Vinyl, and we will be reviewing the album Under Lock and Key by the Mighty Dokken. So there you go.
Oh my God.
Yes,
Really?
yes. It was Dave's pick. So there you go. Katie, thank you for joining us. You were great. Tony, thank you for joining us. As always, the most informed horror man that I know. Even though I did do fairly well with my Fast Five today. And Delyn, it's always fun watching movies with you from opposite sides of the condo and then talking about it. So until next time, I just have one question for you. Hey, did you ever see that movie? See you later.